And welcome back, footy fans, to another episode of Donnie's Disposals. I am your host, Coach Donnie Hess here, back with another AFLW round review. This is why 10 games suck. We are already 6 rounds through the season, ladies and gentlemen, and we have to review round 6. And joining me, kind of a fresh face to the podcast. What you all know that I am a huge friend of Ali Farrell's and one of Ali Farrell's friends from the Norwood Football Club, Miss Steph Simmons, midfielder extraordinaire, is joining me today. Steph, great to have you on the podcast.
How you going, Donnie? Good to be on. I'm very excited to review this round. It's been very exciting.
Well, you picked one sensational round to do. I know when we went back and forth in our message, you said that you were like, I picked a great round. And yes, you did. So really quickly, before we go into the nuts and bolts, the little things when it comes to each of the games, just an overall kind of sky view, thoughts on round 6.
Well, yeah, so like you said, I definitely picked a very exciting round. I think if you're a big footy tipper, you would have had a fair few wrong this week. It was very eventful and chaotic, but definitely a few upsets in there, which makes the competition so exciting. We've now got, I think it's 4 clubs that are on 16 points, and then we've got about 6 on 12 points. So it's a very tight race to, a lot of the teams will be each into play finals, so it's going to be a very, very tight race. This round definitely makes the next 4 rounds an exciting one. So
Yeah, two absolutely massive log jams, and it's going to be fun to see it kind of play out. I'm very, very excited for it. I know with my tipping, I was 5 for 9. I got a couple out there, but a couple ones that I think a lot of people miss. So if you got more than 6, I tip my cap to you, because you are you calling some absolute doozies if you did. So let's jump right into it. Friday night footy. Thankfully, I love saying that. Friday night footy for the women sees the Carleton Blues beat the Western Bulldogs 53-34. And unfortunately, Steph, I look at it like this. I think Coach Burke's abilities to question his players' professionalism didn't exactly breed the fight back that I think he was expecting, as the Blues get another win and continue to push for a potential final situation for the Carleton Footy Club.
Yeah, it's a shame they didn't, have a bit of bite back. They're still winless for the season. You sort of expect them to take the opportunity against Carlton to, really make a statement. But I did hear they had a case of gastro during the week, so I think it took a couple of players out, and that definitely would have fatigued them a little bit. But Carlton had their troubles as well. They were without their skipper, with Karen Peterson. So that would have been a bit of a loss with them in leadership, but they still were able to get on top of them. And yeah, it's a shame with Burke not being able to, get his girls to have a win this week. They're going to have to really itch for it next week, which is, we'll discuss later, it's going to be a very hard game for them. But it's a bit disappointing to see the Dogs still on their winless streak.
Yeah, like I was talking with another podcast that I was on a couple weeks ago, and earlier this week, and I basically said it. I said, if you look at the Doggies list, they've got a finals list. They've got some incredible talent. I mean, Ellie Blackburn. I mean, just her name should bring reverence in the AFLW because of the absolute warrior that she is. An incredible player, but they've dealt with every single issue you could possibly come up with to distract or to kind of dampen the season. Injury, they've had drama with Coach Burke, and then, as you said, the gastro that went through. I mean, an incredible fight back. They didn't just go away. I mean, but this is one of those where I think Carleton has shocked everybody with how good they've played under new Coach Buck, and the Doggies have done the exact opposite. They have been the disappointment of this AFLW season, which absolutely stinks for such a great club, and for some of the players on that list. It's hard to see, but unfortunately, Carleton gets the 4 points, and the Duggies still have to look to see potentially when their first win could possibly be. So let's jump up to Sydney and Blacktown as the Giants get off the schneid, getting their first win of the season, beating the West Coast Eagles 44-24. I know I may be a Swan supporter, but I had to grin at this one. Happy for the Giants to get their first win over the West Coast Eagles. again, I think the travel all the way across country really gets the Eagles a little bit because this is a Giants team that's been a little bit inconsistent, but they've always been competitive in every game this year.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that little bit of extra travel can take it out of teams, and I think it did out of West Coast. And these are also two teams playing for a bit of pride. GWS were looking for their first win, and then West Coast were looking for a bit of consistency, maybe getting a back-to-back win for the first time. I don't know if they've actually gone two in a row in the time they've actually been in the league. But you could tell it was a match. It got a bit heated. They were both fired up and ready to bite at each other. But I was a little bit disappointed that West Coast weren't able to capitalise a back-to-back win after, having performing 4 quarters last week against Port. And they started strong this week, but GWS were able to just capitalise with their scoring shots, and they had immense pressure in their forward line to allow West Coast to turn it over. So and then you've got players like Goldsworthy that's, scored 3 goals and had a fair share of her goal assists as well, which was really impressive. So, yeah, GWS just fought a bit harder, I reckon.
Yeah, such a fun one. And GWS is kind of one of those where it's a little bit of everything. They've got experience, they've got young talent, and it's just kind of hasn't really clicked. In this game, it clicked. They looked really, really good. And again, Elise Parker, absolute superstar. As you said, Zoe Goldsworthy, I think, is one of those up and coming superstars. The Giants have really, really let her shine. It's been fun to watch her. So good game for the charcoal side of Sydney on that one. We jump down to Casey Fields, and I must admit this angered me because of my Swans playing when they did, that I did not get to watch this game live, but I got up and actually saw the last 3 minutes of this game, which I'm kicking myself. I shouldn't have, because this was an absolutely incredible game. I did go back and watch this game in its entirety because I couldn't not watch this, because I had to see how this all turned out. What an incredible game as the Crows go to Casey Fields. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, I said that. The Crows go to Casey Fields and get a win, 56-46, a 10-point win. And the Crows kind of take that proverbial, hey, look at me sign and wave it to everybody in the AFLW, because I know I'm guilty of this. I had the D's winning this one, and winning this one potentially easy, because the Crows have played some good teams. They've got some wins, but I wasn't sure if they were up to the task that was Melbourne. And obviously, Ann Hatchard and Ebony Marinoff went, you know what? Hold my beer. And they did. Holy shnikes. And then I have to bring this up. I don't know. Did you see the sign to Ann Hatchard at Casey Fields that she actually then proceeded to follow the request? Did you see it?
Yeah, I did. There was the Marmalade Boys, so Checkers and Trey obviously stitched her up with that one. They obviously know her quite well, and wanted to probably make her do something, because I think they know she would have had the opportunity to do it. So why not do something like that? And good on her for, doing the good old dab. I think it's a bit out of date, but she did it anyway. Um, but yeah, this was a game that I was very much looking forward to. It was definitely one of those ones where, like you said, it was Adelaide had been undefeated, as is Melbourne, but Adelaide probably has had a bit of an easier run, and it was really going to test their football with a team like Melbourne, who haven't lost a game I think it was, their last game they lost against Adelaide was their final back in season 6.
Mm-hmm.
So that was really good to see that Adelaide were able to capitalise their quick ball movement. And both teams held each other scoreless in a quarter, which hasn't been done with either team this season before. Like Adelaide were goalless in the first quarter, and then Adelaide returned the favour with Melbourne and left them goalless in the second. And then like you said, Ebbs Marinoff and Hatchard turned the Jets on, and did what they did best. And actually, Ali and reminded me of this. So her husband did, actually, that Ebbs and have been playing football together for nearly 10 years. They've started at local footy together and got drafted the same year since the beginning. So they've nearly played a decade of footy. So they know how to work well with each other. And I think they just really dominated the midfield, and, was able to stop the transition that Melbourne are usually really good at.
Yeah, well, and it also helps when both of them kick two goals in a game. Not something you
Yeah.
normally see. You know, one midfielder may get two goals, but when two midfielders both get two goals instantly, and absolutely very difficult, especially in AFLW, a very difficult thing to maneuver because it comes from an unconventional scoring thing. You're used to the forwards being the ones kicking the goals, but when your mids are kicking goals and they're both kicking two, instant impact, both are absolutely insane. I'm interested to see if we see a repeat of what we did last year because I know I bring up trends. Brisbane did the same thing last year. They went to Casey Fields, they won. What happened in the grand final? So I'm not trying to dissuade the Crows fans on this one, but did you just wake up the giant that is the Melbourne Demons? That's my interesting thing because I think everybody saw the same thing happen last year. Nobody expected Brisbane to go to Casey Fields get a win. Brisbane did, and I think Melbourne took the step back and I think they went, we need to fix this. And then when they went up to Springers last year in the grand final, they repaid the favor. So I'm interested to see, can Melbourne do it again? Can they take
Mm.
that loss that they were not expecting on home ground and make the Crows pay for it? So it'll be really, really interesting to watch that timeline go through. I know you still got a few matchups here that I'm very, very interested in, but wow, was that an incredible game. So we jump over back over to Melbourne to RSEA Park in Melbourne as St. Kilda have won three in a row, beating the Hawks 45-36. But I must discuss it first. Unfortunately, the tragic and very difficult news for me to say, especially considering she's a friend of the podcast, Steph Kiochi's ACL tear. Absolutely heartbreaking. She was brought in for her leadership. It was difficult to see her go down in this game, but the Saints fight back. I absolutely love this. Del, Coach Del Santo has finally got these girls clicking and in such a way that they're a fun team to watch. They've got some great midfielders. Jamie Lambert has been absolutely a perfect pickup for them in the offseason, being able to step into that midfield. So nice win for the Saints here as they continue to climb up the ladder with a third consecutive win.
Yeah. It was gut wrenching to see Steph do a knee. It made my heart drop. I've got a lot of love for Steph. So shout out to her and hope she goes well with her recovery and hopefully maybe get to see her again. But I'm glad the Saints were able to capitalize and, get the win for her because she's a big leader in that team, obviously. I thought this was a game that could go either way. I did have my doubts with the Saints early in the year, considering, they've been in the comp for a while and been sort of, a bit of a below average team, but they've won 3 games in a row. It's really good to see them on a winning streak. And their disposal efficiency has really improved, which is good to see. Hawks had a little bit of scared them a little bit near the end. They were able to score a fair few goals unanswered to, shorten the margin a bit. But Saints were just that little bit stronger and a bit more accurate, and especially in the first half, which got them the win.
Yeah, definitely. That the 9 point margin at the end is a little bit of a misnomer because of the fact that they did the Hawks really clawed this game back into closer relevance late in the game. So it's one of those you look at it and you go, oh, that's a nice game. But St. Kilda really did dominate that game, which was very interesting because Beck Goddard has found a way to get those Hawks girls running, and they're a lot of fun to watch at times. So I was a little surprised that they didn't play as well in that one, but you never know. Sometimes that happens. So let's jump over to where you are in South Australia and Alberton Oval as the Swans go on the road and get their first ever road win. Let me put my red hat on for a little bit and do my little happy dance because I must say this was an incredible game to watch for me, not only because I'm a
Yeah.
Swans fan, but I think this was an incredibly good game of football with a little bit of hargy bargy, and I absolutely loved it. Like one of the things I gotta give this Swans team is that they do not back down. They do not take any from anybody. I know there was a moment I was talking with a friend of mine where Gemma Houghton knocks over Ali Morfitt. Morfitt gets up, gets in her face, and a couple of her teammates, including Tanya Kennedy, one of their Irish recruits, comes in and a beeline by Alexi Hamilton to absolutely cold
Yeah.
cock Abby Dowrick. Dowrick goes down, and it was one of those. I was talking with a friend. He goes, Lexi Hamilton's one of those. She will beeline 300 meters if she has to just to get into the fight, and I absolutely love that. So I don't want to stay only on the fighting part of the footy, but I had to say I love that. A little bit of old school football in the women is absolutely fantastic. But this was a game that was a little bit of, if I'm Port Adelaide, I'm, how to say this. Lauren Arnell has got to be kicking herself because the undisciplined free kick giveaways by Port Adelaide in this game, a couple of them were absolutely ridiculous. But
Yeah.
the lack of accuracy really hurt them, because if you look at it, they had more scoring shots in this game. They had 11 behinds, or 10 or 11 behind, 12 behinds, my apologies, 12 behinds in this game. So if you look at it, if half of those are straight, they win this game.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's twice in a row. They were the same last week against West Coast, unfortunately. And is, same sort of routine as well with them being undisciplined in their free kicks last week, and it's happened again this week. So I think Loz needs to look at her leadership squad and a lot of older girls that need to, see the maturity in the younger girls and bring them up to play, to be able to sort of bite their tongue a bit and, fight back in a way that's going to be, for your players, not just for the sake of fighting back. And you can see the difference where, Swans had that Bloods culture of, sticking up for her teammates and, they wanted to play for each other. And, they played, like, considering they didn't win a game last year, they've, well, and especially the Port last year, I think they got smacked by about 10 goals by Port last year. And I don't think
60,
they scored a goal.
66-2 was the final
60,
score. They didn't kick a
yeah,
single goal. They had 2 point, if I remember correctly, the Swans had 2 points within 10 minutes of this game.
yeah. And look how far they've come. They've returned and bigger, better than ever. And I know Scott Gowans is saying, this isn't the end for them. They're going to build from this game. This is their season's not done yet. And they could potentially, if they really want to keep this momentum going, they could possibly, be in a chance to maybe sneak in the 8. Who knows? But I like the likes of Chloe Malloy was unreal. And I've got to get my hat off to Bella Smith, who started off in the back line. She got dropped for a game, and then she comes back into the forward line and's been having, she's been getting contested grabs and scoring goals. And I think she's, looking really good in the forward line. So, yeah, she's really helped them get that over the line this week.
Yeah, definitely. And I think I remember hearing an interview with Scott Gowans, and he goes, last year, he goes, was more about getting development. He goes, we would take little wins. He goes, I knew we weren't going to win a ton of games, but I just wanted to see progression. And this year, I mean, it's a total reset. I mean, he wants to win games. He said everything is about wins now. He goes, it's kind of cruel, but it's kind of awesome at the same thing. He goes, I want the ability to call people and tell them, hey, you don't have a spot anymore.
Yeah.
It's competitive, and I appreciate that. But I understand everybody's like, well, look at what the league did to give them Chloe Malloy and Lucy McAvoy. Yeah, but if you really look at it, some of the biggest impactors are a trade for Laura Gardner, who was not getting any time in the starting midfield for the Geelong Cats. They trade the #1 overall pick in this year's draft, which I know was an overagers draft. So it's like basically getting Laura Gardner for the first overall pick. And Allie Morfitt, as I've said a couple of times, and a couple of people, what has Scott Gowans unleashed on this competition in Allie Morfitt this year? Holy shnikes, does she look? I mean, after the first game, I went, if she can just be decent the rest of the year, AA is definitely a possibility. After 6 games, right now, I don't see another ruck that's going to dethrone her as the ruck on the All Australian unless they start kicking 2 goals a game, because that's how good Ali Morfitt is playing right now. It is ridiculous what she is doing. And I have to say this, her and Matilda Schultz are going to be fun to watch over these next few years, because that was a fun battle, because they both went after each other. Absolutely chef's kiss ruck battle there. Absolutely loved it. That was a lot of fun. But then it's seeing Jade Anthony come in her first game, kick a goal in this, just to see how the girls played really, really well. Again, red hat Donnie here. I'm sorry to all the people that I try not to be the one-eyed supporter when I do this, but it was so much fun to watch it. Again, this is a Port team. I think Lauren Arnell she's got some good pieces here. It's just getting the undisciplined acts out of their game and then finding kind of that consistency going forward. Gemma Houghton is an absolute superstar. I mean, there's no way to stop her if she can get going. Ash Saint is one of those. She may not get a ton of touches, but when she does, she makes them impactful. She gets 4 touches, 2 goals in this game. That's not a bad return. So, but you'd like maybe 4 or 5 touches and 3 or 4 goals. That'd be great. But you just,
Yeah.
it all just depends on supply in this one. Abby Dowrick was absolutely fantastic in this game. I thanked my lucky stars that Cuthbertson did not tear her ACL in that one leap for a mark that she missed, and she hyperextended. Thankfully, she came back.
Yeah.
So, but this was
Yeah,
just
that
it
was
was
something to
yeah.
watch, but it was good to say. It was good to see that she recovered from that, because yeah, that made my heart drop as well. But yeah, like Port do have some really good talent in there, and I know they're working hard to develop their young squad. And yeah, how good is Gemma Houghton? Like, I think people need to look up to her to see how she plays and how she acts and everything. Like, she's unreal. But
Mhm.
definitely can't dismiss Port and how they're trying to progress. But yeah, they've got a lot of learnings to go from, especially this year.
Well, and as we were saying off mic, they have themselves quite the little bundle of talent to come into this squad over the next couple of years. So
Absolutely.
I think Lauren Arnell will be just fine. So I think
Yeah,
they're gonna take their lumps a little bit this year. Finishing where they did it. Unfortunately, they got kind of a Bears schedule this year, which I feel kind of horrible for them because they've had to face some really good teams. So there's still a lot of positivity, I think, in Alberton. So nothing to be upset too much on that one. Even though I must say I got a little bit turbed with all of the whinging from some of the fans in this game. Like there was one gentleman that was definitely in the microphone a couple of times, and he was screaming about the umpires. But every decision that he yelled about, they got right.
yeah, they got it right. You can't dismiss the umpires,
They got it
unfortunately.
right. There
Yeah,
was one.
absolutely.
Cynthia Hamilton had one contested mark, and he's like, "Umpire, what are you doing, umpire?" That's. I'm like, dude. When you watch the replay, you're gonna feel really, really dumb because she was first hands on the ball. She made that. She marked that. So,
Yeah,
oh,
absolutely. The umps
reel it
know
back
what they're
in.
doing. Just let them do their job, and you can haggle all you want, but they're probably going to embarrass you 9 times out of 10, I reckon.
Yeah.
So
Well, but I appreciate that they're passionate. And the one thing I gotta give
yeah.
this out, the SA fan base is that Alberton Oval is almost always packed. There's always people there. Never Tear Us Apart is fantastic to listen to. Even if you're a Crow supporter, you gotta give a little bit of credit. That's really, really cool that they do that. That's a cool little tradition. So, and I've loved how both the Crows and the Port fans are there for the women. It's absolutely fantastic. So we jump to what many people would consider the one of the other upset of the round, and that is the Collingwood Magpies minus Ruby Schleicher go up to Brisbane, up to Springers, and get the 5-point win. Bree Davy, you absolute legend. It's great to see she is back and full strength. She's absolutely magnificent. But this is one of those that there's a little bit of a little bit of communication, a little bit of controversy, some might even say, because Coach Starcevich left 2 of his top 21 players off due to disciplinary reasons. And he did not hold back with his disdain for that particular situation, as both Jade Ellinger and I think it's Poppy Bolts both were omitted because of disciplinary reasons. And some could say that that might have cost them this game because Jade Ellinger would have been quite the addition off the flank in this one. And she wasn't there. Pies get the win, and Brisbane now has 3 losses on the season.
Yeah, I think a lot of people were confused when two, especially, Jay, they were very good players within the squad, saying that they were omitted, and would have been raised a lot of eyebrows. But to say that it was, for disciplinary reasons, and they said lack of sleep, I think we can sort of read between the lines of what that means. And I think it's an important statement to make for their coach to drop them, because it just shows like maybe the kind of culture he wants to bring and the professionalism to bring to the squad, and especially in the league. You've only got 10 rounds or even 14 week season if you're playing finals. in that season, you need to do all the right things. You can do all the, lack of sleep stuff, and you maybe get away with it in preseason, but especially in off season. But yeah, I think it definitely kicked them in the bum a bit with that. But it also could be a big learning for them to, make a statement of that, you're here to play footy, you need to do it right. And you need to do it on your club's terms and play for your teammates as well. So definitely, I think it cost them a little bit. But yeah, Brisbane, I think, were their own worst enemy this week, because they, not only with those two being out, but they, dropped a couple of sitters and missed a few easy goals as well. So I think this is a big learning week for them. But it's good to see that Collingwood have kept their season alive a little bit. And yeah, how good is Bree Davey? Like, the resilience of that girl to come back from, missing pretty much 2 seasons when she did her ACL in season 6, to come back the superstar that she is. It's unreal to watch someone like her. So yeah, it's a good win for them.
Yeah, she's getting beaten from pillar to post. I think she had a gash. She got a gash on her forehead during this game that she had to have taped over. It's just just an absolute. She just absolutely fights through everything. She's absolutely fantastic to watch. And the fact that this Collingwood team still has Ruby Slicer still to come into this team. They're a sleeping giant if they can, if when they get everybody healthy, they could be quite the tough out, because there's stars on each line. There's that ability to be able to damage anywhere from on the scoreboard. So it'll be very, very interesting to see this Collingwood Magpies team. I don't think Brisbane were sitting here putting the fork in them. They're done. There's no way they can't win a premiership, because the way they run is ridiculous. But this one hurts because this mires them back further in the pack, which is going to make their road to the grand final a lot harder. So it'll be interesting to see how that goes. This is both two watches in two completely different situations. Collingwood having to kind of fight back from a little bit of adversity, and then Brisbane's ability to kind of self-sabotage themselves a little bit amongst the squad. So it'll be interesting to see how their seasons progress going forward. We jump to Warrnambool. Fantastic to see country footy grounds getting a little bit of love on this one, as Warrnambool Oval in Victoria sees the Essendon Bombers get, some would say, an upset here, beating the Cats 29-19. And the way the Cats have been scoring, this is an impressive defensive performance by an Essendon team that I've always said their weakest point of their entire team is their defense.
Yeah, absolutely. I would say it's a bit of an upset, but it was good to see, you've got the Prespaskas sisters up against each other, and obviously Maddie got the bragging sister rights this week. But Essendon were able to stop, Geelong's game plan. They like to play the outside ball game, and they were able to stop that. And with Geelong not being able to, get it out on the outside, I don't see them having a plan B of how to win games if that doesn't work. So yeah, it was really cool to see Essendon win a game against a team like Geelong. I think that's a big statement, because that puts them in the 8, and they're in they just came into the competition last year, and I think the leaders of Bonnie Toogood and Steph Kane have really brought a good club culture, and the players are really getting amongst each other and playing some good football. So, and then Maddie Prespakis is making a good statement and leading by example of playing some really good football amongst that club. And you could see, Amber Clark, Essendon in the forward line, she was itching to hit the scoreboard. I think she hit a couple of behinds in a few minutes in the first half, but she was able to capitalise with 2 goals and have a couple of goal assists in the game as well, which was good. But yeah, I know Geelong supporters, Ali, won't be very happy with it, but Geelong are looking to still be quite damaging in the rounds to come. So I don't think their season's quite over yet.
Yeah, I was not gonna go for the veiled shot at Ali on that one. Never mind. Actually, I want to go back and do a huge shout out. And I'm not sure if you're aware of this, but there's actually a little bit of American flair on the Essendon Bombers. Danny Marshall is actually a USAFL, the league that I play over here, and a USAFL alum. So to see her getting her first game of the year in quite a big game here against Geelong was fantastic to see her. In fact, where most of us that are paying attention that know about the USAFL, we're getting ready for our national tournament here this upcoming weekend. So keep an eye on my socials to keep on how my gentlemen are doing. Unfortunately, I cannot go due to work commitments and a few things that have happened personally, but I will keep you updated on how my Roosters are doing, how the boys are doing for this year's tournament. We happen to be in Divi 3. I know, huge plug there. Pull it back, coach. Pull it back. But yeah, a fantastic game of footy. It was great to see it again. Essendon, you've got superstars like Bonnie Too Good, Georgia G, and Maddie Prasparkas. It is absolutely fantastic. The Prasparkas sisters were fantastic to watch them go at each other. It was absolutely magnificent footy. Loved this game. It was tough. It was rugged footy. I absolutely enjoyed it. Again, this is a Bombers team that I think they're going to be the first of the four to make finals. I think they are going to make finals this year. They're just too good not to. So it'll be fun to see how they go in the eight this year for finals. So we jump to Icon Park in Melbourne, sees an absolute classic as the Gold Coast Suns get a 1-point win. The golden point. I mean, Plugger Lockett would be chuckling at terrible Hannah on this one as she kicks a behind after the siren to win it for the Sunnies. And the Suns women could be the first Gold Coast team to make an AFL or AFLW finals season with another huge 4 points for the Suns on the road in Victoria.
Yeah, good on you for Tara for kicking it. Well, she kicked it from about almost 50 meters, which was really impressive. I don't think the girls were backing it at first, but I think she knew she had it in the bag. All she had to do was, get a score. So she wasn't like she was aiming for the sticks in the middle. She was pretty much aiming for anything that wasn't outside of it. So yeah, good on her for doing that. I think she scored a fair few points within the game and a goal, but they were all important. Unfortunately, Richmond just they're being run down with some bad injuries. You've got stars like the Hosking twins that are out. Pretty sure who else is out? We've got a fair few that are out. We
Ellie
have
McKenzie is still Ellie
yeah,
McKenzie is still out.
yeah,
They have an injury list that's like seven or eight deep. I mean, thankfully it's not Katie Brennan. I know she's dealt with every single injury you could possibly deal with. Monconti's still there. Dempsey is still there. Elise Sharon off the halfback line. They've still got some good players. It's just that their depth is being tested because I mean, I think they had a player kicker goal that was a train on player that they had to sign this week because that's how many injuries they have. It's Tigerland,
absolutely.
unfortunately, they're a walking ER right now, which is disappointing because this was a Richmond team that I think has a really really good list that I think is built very well, not only for now but also the future.
Yeah, absolutely. I really do feel for Richmond in that state because they made a statement last year that they're here to be, a threat to the competition. And they made their first final series last year, and I was hoping to see them continue that this year. But I hope that injuries don't bite them in the bum a bit too much. So yeah, and you've still got superstars like Monique Conti, who's just been unreal week in, week out, just almost untouchable. But yeah, I think Katie Brennan's got a tough task of leading these girls with, minimal girls even. They're all sort of going into the emergency room quite quickly, but hopefully a few of them can come back. I know a lot of them are just sore and just need a few weeks off, and I think they're able to afford to rest a few girls. But yeah, Gold Coast were just really impressive with how they've been playing, and it's really good to see a club like them actually, become a real dominant club to play finals footy as well. But yeah, it's just this whole, like, with 4 rounds left, I don't even know who's going to be in the top 8 by the end of it because anything can really happen. So all these clubs are just in it for the race. It's really exciting to see.
Yeah, it'll be very very fantastic. As we were kind of saying off the bat, it's like there's 6 teams, if I see this right, 6 teams with 12 points and four teams with 16 points. So it's like besides the top three with Melbourne North and Adelaide with 20, 20, and 24, it's like, I mean, from fourth place all the way to 13th, there's a 1 game split. So this is going to be an interesting final 3 rounds. I cannot wait for it. This ladder is going to do more flips than the men's ladder did, and the men's ladder got pretty
Yeah.
crazy at times for absolutely for sure. So last game of the round sees Fremantle fall to the North Melbourne Roos 66-21 again. the Rouge just so good, kind of bouncing back after kind of a after a slip up last week in a game that I think many people expected them to win over the Brisbane Lions, but the Rouge find a way. That the forward line is absolutely ridiculous at times. I literally in that go, how do you do that and have the absolute three towers with Randall, King, and Rennie, or Sheilor up forward? So it's absolutely mental, this North team, but we'll have to see how it goes. I know, unfortunately, Steph, I know you are a Fremantle supporter. I know this one was probably difficult because they just ran into such a tall forward line that can kick accurately on their day.
Yeah, well, Talia Randall had, I think, 5, and she
Mm-hmm.
scored 3 of them in the last half, which is when, North Melbourne really put the Jets on. I got to give my hats off to Emma O'Driscoll from Freo in the back line. Like, she was unreal. I think she had about 28 touches in the end, but a lot of them would have been rebound 50s, just coming back and forth, back and forth. But she was an absolute workhorse to get the Freo defense at least a little bit of spark with a very, very dominant full line. And the Freo midfield, I think, had about 3 players tagging, Ash Riddle and Jazz Garner as well. Like, I don't think they could find the consistency of how to bring them down. And without Turbo, Kiara Bowers, it would really hurt the midfield, I think, with the inexperience. And North Melbourne have been playing in this, like the same squad have been playing with each other for a while now, so they know how to play with each other. So I think experience definitely got Freo in the end, but Lisa Webb, I think she's getting the girls in the right direction. They just haven't quite figured out the kinks yet. And under a new coach, Freo are sure going to have their speed bumps as well.
Yeah, definitely for sure. I completely agree with you on that. First year coach, you're gonna have some growing pains. You're gonna have some changes because everything is brand new. This is something new that's been brought in. So absolutely agree with you. So all right, Steph, that is all 9 games discussed. That is all 9 games gone through. Let's jump to it. My favorite part. I'm gonna test you a little bit. I want to know. I got some burning questions, some questions that I've been thinking about since the last game finished on some trends that we saw over this weekend. So we'll start off with, I think, what everybody wants to talk about, and that is the upsets. Because again, as you kind of said, the tipping kind of got thrown off with a couple of games that I think many people kind of assumed would go a certain way. So we had 2 massive upsets in this, with Adelaide going to Casey and beating the Melbourne Demons, and Collingwood finding a way to beat Brisbane up in Queensland. Which of these would you consider the bigger upset?
I'd probably say Collingwood beating Brisbane, because I think we know with Melbourne and Adelaide it was going to be a very tight contest. And that's 2 of the top teams that were undefeated. So, I think with Collingwood being away, I guess Adelaide were also away as well against, a very dominant Melbourne team. But I'm going to say Collingwood over Brisbane, just in the fact that, you know, they're a bit shaky on their run for the season this year. They've been a little bit inconsistent with how they want to play their football, but I think they really made a statement going up north and beating Brisbane in that aspect. But I will say that I did think that Melbourne were going to win over Adelaide. But so it is a little bit of a surprise. But at the same time, you realise, the stats say it with, a dominant midfield like Anne Hatchard and Marinoff that we were saying before, and sharing the load around with their goal kicking as well, which is, a very, very big force to have in a team, midfielders scoring goals. So I'm going to sort of say Collingwood was the bigger upset than Adelaide and Melbourne.
Yeah, I would be with you on that one, just because I think it's a little bit of Brisbane kind of playing down to their opponent a little bit. I know Collingwood is very, very good, but again, Ruby Slicer is such an important player to that team that it's like still not having her in the roster. I think really you can tell it affects their go off halfback, and that ability for an extra rotation to go through the middle, because that's what Ruby can do. She's the Swiss Army knife of this team. So it's great to see it again. Bree Davy and Britt Benici both coming back from their ACLs. You're interested to see how do their bodies hold up as this season goes on. But this was just an impressive win. I mean, it's not very much that you can go up to a really good team's place and get a huge win like this. And for them to do it like they did was absolutely magnificent. So I'm 100% with you. I think it's Collingwood. I knew the Crows could test Melbourne, and kind of as we spoke a little bit off mic, is the fact that do we see a repeat of history with the fact that Brisbane did the same thing last year, and who won the premiership? Melbourne in the end. So it'll be fascinating to see how this all translate as the season goes on. So we'll talk to it. I mean, I'm looking at the ladder right now. There are 6 spots. There is a giant log jam from 8th to 13th, including Geelong, Richmond, St. Kilda, Collingwood, Sydney, and Freo, all at 12 points with 3 rounds to go. I'm going to test you here. I know your beloved Dockers are in this little group. Who's the one team, if things stay the same and the top 7 stay there, who's the one team that gets in, and what are the who's the one team that gets in and why?
I would love to speak with my heart and say Frio, but I think Richmond, if they get their list sorted and injuries right, they're going to sneak in there. But if that's not the case, I'd also love to speak with my heart and say Sydney for your sake as well. I do have a soft spot for Sydney that because my nan used to go for them as well. But I think I still don't quite see St Kilda reaching finals unless they keep the momentum going. That will definitely surprise me. And I hope in a way they do surprise me with that. But I think, Essendon, I think they're going to keep this spot in the 8. But yeah, it's really hard to tell. But I think it's going to be a tough race with all 4 of them. I think who's it? Collingwood's got Carlton in the end, so next week, sorry. And then I guess Saints do have a bit of an easier run with GWS, who have also come off a win, but obviously, St Kilda have got a bit more momentum. But you see Richmond and Essendon have got Dreamtime next week, who are up against each other on the same point. Oh no, not the same point. Sorry, so Essendon are 16 points, and then Geelong have got Freo. So I think most of these teams are all playing each other in that logjam, like you said. So I would love to see Freo, but I think I'm going to see probably Collingwood go up a little bit because they're on a big momentum high at the moment, especially making a statement winning against Brisbane.
Yeah, I think for me, it's Geelong or Collingwood, just because I think by abilities and lists, I think it's one of those. I think it's one of those two. I know with if you look at the runs home, Sydney's probably got the easiest one, and their most difficult opponent is Collingwood. So you've got 2 teams in this little logjam that are facing each other, and just kind of depending on what the list is, I think Sydney can test Collingwood. Can Sydney beat Collingwood? Will all come down to their goal accuracy. If they can kick goal accurately, they've got a shot. I think the way they've been playing footy will work. I'm I'm not going to don Red Hat Donnie and even make an attempt to say it, because if somehow the Sydney Swans make finals, I'm going to lose my mind. I'm not even hold back on that one. I'm going to lose my mind. I know I was talking on a Swans podcast earlier yesterday, and they asked me, they said, do you think they can make finals? And I said, their run home gives them a shot. The question will be is how does everything kind of pan out ahead of them? I mean, you've got a Q clash this week between Gold Coast and Brisbane. So one of those teams is not probably, unless they get a draw, one of those 2 teams is not going to win, which is going to leave them at 16, which is going to compress Richmond. As you said, the Dreamtime game between Richmond and Essendon is 7v9, both of those within 4 points. Collingwood Carlton this week. I know Sydney has Hawthorn, so many people, I probably would go there. As you said, the Geelong v Fremantle, or Walyalup as they're being called now, a lot like Melbourne with Nam, which I think is fantastic for Indigenous round. I think it's absolutely fantastic that they're doing that they're taking on the Aboriginal name. I think that's absolutely magnificent. So there's a few games that I think this is gonna get hashed out. I think it's going to be either Collingwood or Geelong, personally, just because of the strength of their squad, and the way that. But like I said, the way this season goes, I am not putting anything off the table, if I'm being 100% honest. And I know you and I can go back and forth come round 10, because Fremantle plays Sydney in the last game of the season. So it'll be fun. I know that there'll be some fun banter between the two of us for that round.
Yeah,
So,
absolutely. No
and
doubt.
actually, this is a great transition here because as you said, you are a Fremantle supporter. Being a WA girl in South Australia has got to be fun sometimes. As a Dockers supporter, I must ask, you kind of addressed this a little bit, but I want just a little bit more detail. Your thoughts on Coach Webb's first season so far? Because I mean, again, you're still with a shot to potentially make finals if you can get on a run here.
Yeah, absolutely. I think because last year Freo was sort of in what Richmond's situation is at the moment. They were just in a
Hmm.
run of injuries, and they had to have train on players come in last year. So I think Webber was a bit. She was coming into a job where she already knows the players. She's a past player of the Freo Football Club as well. She's one of the inaugural players. And I think they all call her Mama Webb. Like she's already got a good relationship with a lot of the girls. And I think I think her main priority is making sure she builds a good culture and trusting her and trusting the process of everything. With her game plan, I think they're obviously still working out the kinks of it and stuff. I think they're a little bit too predictable at the moment. Like you can sort of tell what the next move's going to be. And I think that got caught up with North Melbourne just, being able to read the play that easily. So I'd like to see them being a bit crafty in what they do. And a good example of that is when Ebs Antonio's at her best. She's a very crafty, exciting footballer to watch. I think they just got to figure out their forward structure and who to actually play there. They just need a good bit of spark in there. But I think Lisa Webb is on the right path to building some good relationships with the girls and making sure that they're getting the best footy that they can. But yeah, I think I'd just like to see them play a bit, not riskier football, but just a bit more exciting and a bit more, unpredictable football. I think that's what's going to get them in the right direction, in my opinion. But yeah, I've only heard good things about Lisa Webb, so hopefully that will carry on through her and their leadership group as well with Hayley Miller and everyone. So yeah, I love to see Freo succeed because obviously they were a very big threat at the early years of AFLW. They've sort of dropped off a little bit. I know they would have lost a lot of people and injuries and whatnot, but they've got a lot of young talent that are up and coming. It's just Lisa's got to figure out what to do with those girls.
Yeah, I mean, she's got something. It's just right now. I agree with you. She's dealing with the fact that she's got Turbo is in and out with injury and everything like that. And then Haley Miller, I said it earlier in the season again. I mean it. I mean it almost as a joke, but I mean you could have put her on a milk carton because she was missing in action. It was difficult for me to watch Fremantle a little bit because hey, I'm so used to Haley being this great player, and I know she is, and I'm not saying that she's anything decreased from that, but it was sad to see her not step up when Gabby O'Sullivan was hurt, Turbo was hurt, because that's her style. I mean, she's an absolute superstar. So I loved last week. I thought she was fantastic last week. And again, it's kind of another one of those this week where you run into a North Melbourne midfield that I mean anybody can get lost in that midfield with Jazzy Garner, Jenna Bruton, Ash Riddell. I mean, legitimately there's very few in the competition that can go round for round with that trio there. So
Yeah.
I'm not gonna get on her this week, but I want to see her step up, lift just the littlest bit, because with no Turbo and Gabby Sullivan still kind of getting back into full fitness after her shoulder injury, they need her to lift in the middle. Anya Tig is an absolute superstar. I love her to death. She's absolutely magnificent. She's been fantastic for the Fremantle Footy Club, but she can't do it all herself, unfortunately. So, like I said, there's still some. I love Emma O'Driscoll. I think she's magnificent down back. She's an absolutely incredible player, and hearing her story of how she was a netballer and this year she feels that she's actually a footballer this year is fantastic to hear. So, all
You
righty,
got to
we
have her vibes as well.
I will not disagree with you. I heard her on Credit to the Girls podcast, and I thought she was absolutely magnificent. So I'm hoping maybe if I want to try to find a way to talk with her because she seems like
Yeah.
an absolute character. I'd love to sit down and have a chat with her because she sounds like an absolute treat to sit down and have a chat with. So we get to the part of the podcast. I kind of take over a little bit, and I know you're probably going, "What is this team of the week that's on Coach Hess's script?" Every week I pick out some of the players from each of the positions and put together a 21 that I think had some of the best performances of the weekend. I do a little bit more leaning on goals and scoring involvement. So there's might be a few names in here that people are going to go, "What the heck are you thinking, coach?" So bear with me. I have my analytics that I do to do this, and it has not let me down. I've usually can get 10 to 12 of the credit to the girls in of sometimes I'll have the occasional oddball that'll hop in here. So we will start on the back since I'm a coach. You got to start with defense. And the fullback line sees Emily Borg of the Port Adelaide Power. I literally got to watch her intercept mark so many times with Sydney going forward. So I'll give her a tip of my cap because I appreciate a good defensive performance. And I know this will make you smile. Fremantle's Emma O'Driscoll is the other fullback on this and this last on on the team this week. And the halfback line sees Elizabeth Georgia Stathis of the Western Bulldogs, a fantastic game in that first game against OMG, total and absolute complete brain fade on live on here. OMG against Carlton. I was like, my brain went, who did they play? Okay. All right. North Melbourne's Emma Carney. I mean, she's literally stapled and penned into this because almost always she's one of the best halfbacks in the entire comp. And then Chloe Dalton, when you slip forward from the halfback line and kick a goal, I got to tip my cap to you, young lady. On the wings, yes, I give wings some love on my team. In my team of the week sees Eliza McNamara from the Melbourne Demons and Isabel Pritchard of the Western Bulldogs. In the center, in the guts, I mean, how can you not put these two in? Adelaide's twin towers of Ebony Marinoff and Anne Hatchard, joined by Carlton's Abby McKay, also in the center. At the ruck sees Jess Good from the Carlton Blues. Half forward line, we mentioned her during the GWS recap, Zoe Goldswater of GWS, St. Kilda's Nat Exxon, and Melbourne's Eden Zanka. She's one of the reasons why Melbourne stayed in that game, kicking her 5 goals in that one. At the full forward line, sees Essendon's Amber Clark and North Melbourne's Talia Randall. On the bench, I do defender, midfielder, ruckman, forward, and utility, which can be from any of the positions. The defender sees West Coast Belinda Smith. The midfielders is St. Kilda's Jamie Lambert, and the ruck Sydney's Ali Morfitt. In the forward lines, Hawthorn's Anya McDonough, and my utility, we talked her up. I had to put her in there. Collingwood's Bree Davy. So that is my team of the week. I know it's a lot of names, really, really quickly. Just your quick thoughts of team of the week for this week.
No, I think you've got a very solid team in there. I think Ali Morfitt's an unreal ruck. I really rate her, and I think she did really well again, especially against an up and coming star in Tidal Schultz. But I think a lot of people don't recognize her enough, and I think I like to see one week, especially if she keeps the form up, is Jess Allen from Adelaide Crows, her ruck. Mm-hmm. She was absolutely dominant in their game, and I think she won majority of the hit outs in that game, and she was really effective with her disposal efficiency and her handballing and kicking as well. So I think I would give her a spot in the ruck if I could, especially in the interchange even. Mm-hmm. But everywhere else is, especially like your forward line's pretty, stating the obvious. You had I'm having a bit of a brain fade as well. You
Randall and Zanka both kicked 5. Yeah, Zoe Goldswater kicked 3, and then Nat Exxon and Amber Clark both kicked 2, but had high possessions. One had 17 and one had 19 possessions. So I think both can occasionally go through the middle. So their possessions were a little bit higher, and they made a little bit more of an impact on the game. So it's very interesting sometimes because you'll get weeks where you'll have 3 or 4 players that have 4. And then it's kind of progressing slowly down from that. So it's like the forwards are really easy. Pick the top 6 players that kick goals. So it's a little bit easier. It's the midfield where I feel like I'm splitting hairs because you get to it. It's like you have 3, 4. Well, I had one week. What was it that I had? Bree Davy kicked 2, I think it was the first week, but then I had 9 players all kick a goal and all had anywhere between 30 and 35 touches, and I've only got 5 spots left. I'm like, oh, how do I do this? Because
how do you do that?
Well, unlike the AA, I don't just throw them in the forward line. That's the other difference. So I literally I start looking at intercept possessions. What's their disposal efficiency? How do they have scoring involvements? How's their tackles? Because as a coach, there's the little defensive acts sometimes that I think I will put a little bit on too. So I go through the statistics as much as I can, plus watching it. Like if I feel one person that had 35 disposals had a bigger impact, then I'll put them in. But most of the time the statistics can really help because it can sometimes decipher on who did a little bit more on their team. So but I always get a kick out of it. It's a lot of fun to do because I'm sitting there and I have my notebook, and after each game I go through and I'm like, okay, who's the ruck, who's the halfback, who's the forward, who's the wing, who's the center, who's the forward, and I go through each of the games. I should show my notebook one time. I mean, it is chicken scratch because I'm having to write all 18 teams and each of their positions. But it's a lot of fun. It gives me something fun to do after each round, and it really makes me focus on when I watch. Okay, she made an impact. Make sure little mental note. Okay, when I go through the statistics later, okay, mental note. Check out and see what her stat line was. Oh, okay, yeah, she did have a really good game. Write it down. So it's a lot of fun. I really get a kick out of it, and it's really helped me. It's helped me learn names as well because this
Yeah.
is really my third full year fully invested in this competition, and each year I find myself more and more. I recognize names, I recognize play patterns where they tend to play a little bit more. So it's becoming easier and easier as I do it, which is, like I said, it's a lot of fun. So we will go back to my homage to the origins of this channel, the fourth and long, and that is power rankings. Now, I do my power rankings just a little bit different than some. I don't just go top of the ladder, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. No, I go by form. So in the last 5 games, what have you done for me lately? How many wins in a row do you have? When was your loss and how was the loss to it? So here is our power rankings. We'll start at 5. The Carlton Blues are 5th place on Coach Hess's rankings. This is going to cause some controversy. I know it, but this is going to be fun. Number 4, the North Melbourne Roos. Again, getting the bounce back win after the loss to the Brisbane Lions really, really well. Absolutely fantastic. Number 3, the St. Kilda Saints, 3 in a row, the second longest win streak. Still, OMG, and I'm just looking at this. I have North Melbourne on here twice.
Yeah.
Whoopsie.
They're that
Whoopsie.
good.
Whoopsie. Whoopsie. Yeah, they're that good that they're both 4th place and 2nd place. So I need to go back into here because it's like my brain just went, why does this not look right? Oh, okay. Alrighty. So I will have to mid-air adjust on this one. So I have the Carlton Blues at 5th. Let's see. I'm trying to do this mid podcast. I'm absolutely loving this. I should just totally and completely. Yeah, we'll keep North Melbourne. We'll keep North Melbourne at 4, St. Kilda at 3. I'm not going to down Nom too much, so I think we'll put Nom at 2 and the Adelaide Crows at 1 because I know Melbourne lost, but they lost to probably the best team in the competition. It was still really, really close. I will defy myself just the tiniest bit, just because I think it's really hard to throw Melbourne completely out of the rankings after last week being number 1 with their win streak. So we will adjust that on the fly like that. So it's Carlton at 5, North at 4, St. Kilda at 3, Melbourne at 2, and the Adelaide Crows at 1. So you undefeated, you got to be at the top of the ladder. So again, a little bit of what have you done for me lately, but I had to kind of adjust that because I wasn't paying attention to that when I wrote it down on my script, but that is okay. So we'll jump from my absolute clanger there. So I will gladly take that one on board, and we will jump to the tips. I know we're still very early in the week, Steph, and we don't know injuries and teams. So we'll kind of take this with a little bit of a grain of salt, but we will tip these games. This looks like another absolutely scintillating round of footy. I cannot wait to see this. So we'll start off Friday night, sees Adelaide Crows, Western Bulldogs. How ugly could this get at your home ground of Norwood Oval?
Yeah, how good. I think I know what I'll be doing Friday night. Be good atmosphere in our home ground, which would be really good. But I can't see Adelaide losing to, last spot. You've got, potential wooden spooners to the potential premiers, so that could happen. But won't totally dismiss Bulldogs because I know what was it, season 6, that they were
Mm-hmm.
struggling a bit, and Adelaide were on top, and they actually got the win over Adelaide at Norwood Oval. I do remember that.
Mm-hmm.
So I will have that in mind, but I think we'll go state the obvious and, tip Adelaide for this one at home.
Crowie should win this one, but this is one of those I call a trap game because this is one of those you're coming off a huge win on the road. You get a team that you should beat, and again, I say should, that you might take lightly. So this is one of those the Crows girls need to be locked in when it comes to it because the Duggies are not gonna they're not gonna go away. Ellie Blackburn run team, they are not going to back down. They're gonna come at you full speed. This is one of those, can the Duggies keep it close? Can they keep it within 3 goals? If they can keep it within 3 goals, you take it as a win in this situation because the Crows are that good. But Crows win this one. I think it's 3 goals or more, but can the Duckies keep it competitive and stay in this one as long as possible? So enjoy the game for sure. I definitely send pictures for sure. You have to send me
Yeah,
pictures of your
absolutely.
spot on the ground. So all right, we jump back over to SEA Park as the St. Kilda Saints host the Giants coming off a win. Both teams coming off a win last round. We'll have to see how does St. Kilda kind of adjust their team with Steph Chiacci going down. GWS starting to kind of find some form a little bit, starting to play a little bit better footy. Do we see an upset and the Giants knock off the Saints? Or do you like the Saints in this one at home?
Yeah, this would be a really interesting one. Yeah, obviously both coming off highs. I wouldn't like to see, Saints ruin their streak. I think they got to be careful with how they play against the Giants. I don't want them. I think this could be quite a scrappy game of football because I don't think they'll quite know how to play against each other. And the fact that, the teams that usually are still quite like developing, and then you got Saints that have just lost a really good leader and stuff. But I'm gonna tip Saints and say that they're gonna keep the momentum going at home, in my opinion.
I'm
Yeah.
gonna I'm gonna tip the Saints in this one, but this is one of those when I think there's a potential for upset. I have my keep an eye, and this is my keep an eye game because Elise Parker, Alicia Eva are starting to find really good form in the center. I like the Giants' spread of talent in this one. I think their young talent is progressing. And again, St. Kilda coming off an emotional, tough, hard win, but losing a senior leader could potentially rattle this team a little bit. So I think St. Kilda should win this. I'm gonna tip St. Kilda to win this, but this is one of those keep an eye out. This will not shock me if GWS can find a way to ruin the win streak of the Saints, even down in Melbourne. So it'll be a fascinating one to watch at RSEA Park. We jumped out GMHBA Stadium, the house of horrors for many teams when it comes to the Cats, as the Cats host Walyulup or aka Fremantle down in the southern part of Victoria. I will tip the Cats in this one, but this is another one where Cats coming off a loss, Fremantle coming off a loss. Who bounces back better? Can Coach Webb bring this team together on this long road trip and kind of really find a way to kind of bond this group together and have a great performance? I Cats just a little bit too good, but I'm going to keep an eye on Fremantle. This is another one set up potential for an upset as the Cats could be taking Fremantle or Wyalup a little bit lightly.
Yeah, I think it's well, Geelong have sort of in a spot where they've got a couple of teams that have figured out their game plan, how to stop it. So I think Freo can learn from that and look at the footage and sort of see if they can do the same thing and capitalize on that. I also like to think that, also in the men's, we make the joke that Geelong's home ground is Freo's home ground because we like to, defeat them. We play our better football against Geelong in the men's side. So I like to think the same thing for the women's as well. So it might be a good trip for them to like to have a good win on the road for Freo. But yeah, I'm unfortunately going to tip with my heart and go for Freo. It might be just like the game before. It's sort of one of those ones you got to keep an eye on Freo. I think that
Mm-hmm.
might be. I think my gut's telling me Freo, to be honest. Could be my gut, might be mistaking my gut for my heart, but that's what I'm going to go with.
I don't mind it. I truly appreciate it. I know there are some people that I know that are tippers that will never tip against their team. I'm one of those. I pull the reverse psychology. I tip against my team in the hopes that if they lose,
Win
I
either
get the tip.
way.
And if I win, and if they win, they win. So it's
Exactly.
a no lose situation no matter what. I do it all the time in the men. Some people laugh at me when I do it. So, but no, I agree with you. Like if Turbo is back, I think this is a game. This is really a really good shot for Fremantle because the Cats are coming off kind of a debilitating loss against Essendon. They got found out a little bit. Will coaches dive into the game plan a little bit and try to see if they can figure it out? I know Sydney put a tagger on Georgie Prasparkas, and it really kind of changed the game. It really brought the game to a much more competitive one. So it'll be fascinating to see, do you have somebody that can tag Georgie Prasparkas out of the game? And then can you kind of limit Amy McDonald and Nina Morris? If you can do that, you can really affect Geelong going forward, because Jackie Perry and Chloe Shear are absolutely electric if they get footy in hand. So if you can keep them from getting supply, you can really, really hurt them. So it'll be fascinating to see how that goes. A fun one for me at Henson Park up in Sydney. The hill will be teeming with people as the Swans, coming off that big win on the road against Port, host the Hawthorn Hawks, and last year's classic on grand final eve between these two teams, as the Hawks get a late winner by Eileen Gilroy, who I love, but then I hated for half a second because she cost us our first ever win. Sydney v Hawthorn. I will don my red hat for just half a second on this one and say, I think Sydney wins this. I think Sydney has progressed a little bit more. I know you have Bates and Bodie for the Hawks, but what I have seen from Sydney and what I have seen from Hawthorn, Sydney has made bigger strides in their game plan on how they are doing it. I think their defense plays really, really well. I think Tanya Kennedy gets put on Emily Bates or Tilly Lucas Rod, which I think could affect their go out of the middle. I think Sydney's the better team. Hopefully Chloe Malloy can give us a little bit of Malloy magic and find a way to kick another goal of the year potential in this one. I think Sydney gets a win and keeps the Henson Park being a place that the Swans love to play in. So your thoughts on this one?
Yeah, I'm going to agree with you on that one, actually. I think Sydney have the win. I think seeing what Sydney's about over the last couple of weeks, and I know that they've got a bit of fire in their gut to keep the win streak going, because, yeah, they're not here to, just have small wins. They're here for the big wins now, like we discussed earlier. So obviously, like Hawthorn, with the engine room that they have, is a real threat with Lucas Rod and Emily Bates, etc. I think they're able to shut them down. I think the Bloods culture is really building, and I think that's what's really going to get them over the line this week. So I'm going to tip Sydney at home.
Yeah, and I think the other thing too will be is Ali Morfitt faces one of the Wales sisters, and I think it could be one of those where I wouldn't be surprised if Ali just jumps up, takes it out of the ruck, and then runs out the front of the contest. Like
Does it itself.
legitimately will not surprise me if she does that. It wouldn't even surprise me if they try to make Laura Gardner kind of be a runner on the edge, because then you make the defensive side midfielder have to try to tackle Ali, and then one handball to Laura Gardner, and it's instantly in the 50s. So that's going to be a fun game. I'm really excited for this one. I think it's going to be a fantastic one and a decent time for me at 11:05. So I will be
Oh, there you
excited for that
go.
one. So let's jump up to Heritage Bank Stadium at the Gold Coast, as a Q Clash for the women has a lot of intrigue for me. This is a really, really good game. Sunnies, Lions, Q Clash. Who do you like in this one?
Yeah, this is what, fourth and fifth up against each other.
Yep.
And yeah, Q Clash, that's going to be very exciting for the state. So I'm actually really excited to see this one. Suns, ooh, I think Lions, just with their experience and stuff, are gonna get them over the line. I reckon. Even though it's in Gold Coast, I think Brisbane, if they bring back, the girls that got a little bit of a slap on the wrist, I think, that could be a lesson learned, and they'll be ready to prove a point to say, we want to play some footy and win games. Although I'd like to see the Suns win, I think I'm going to tip Brisbane in this one.
I'm going to tip Brisbane, but this is another one keep an eye on, because the midfield battle in this is going to be epic. I mean,
Yeah.
you look at it. Talia Hickey, Lauren Bella is your ruck matchup. Okay, that's a fun ruck matchup. That's going to be fun. But think Ali Drennan, Claudia Whitford, Rowbottom versus Dawes, Ali Anderson, and then you have Sophie Conway and Orla Dwyer on the wings. OMG, this is going to be an absolute masterclass of Queensland footy. I cannot wait. This one is fantastic. This one is on right after the Swans matchup. I may stay up and watch this because this looks absolutely epic. I cannot wait to see this game. This is going to be magnificent. I cannot wait. Brisbane win this one, but this is a keep an eye out. This is the Gold Coast chance to stamp themselves into finals this year and to kind of show they've got some talent. They've got a ton of young talent that I think is really growing. Jamie Stanton and Claudia Whitford have come out of
Yeah,
absolutely nowhere and look absolutely magnificent this year. Charlie Rollbottom for the Suns is an absolute bull. It's going to be interesting to see how Brisbane handle her because they don't have a big body midfielder. Brisbane has a quick running midfield. So can they tackle Charlie Rollbottom? Because if they can't, it's going to be a long day for Nat Grider, Phoebe Monahan in that defense, having to try to guard Tara Bohannon and Jack DePie, who are absolute monsters in the air. So it'll be fun to see can if the Suns can get the footy out of the center, it could be a long day for the Brisbane defense. So this is a keep an eye on potential upset here. Brisbane could be in trouble, even if they do bring back Bolts and Jade Ellinger, because neither are super tall. So it'll be fascinating to see on that one. As you said, dream time at Icon Park as Richmond host Essendon in this one. I'm going to tip Essendon in this one only because Richmond's injury list still bothers me. And when you've got Georgia G, Maddie Prosparkas, and Bonnie Toogood on the other sidelines, you're instantly down. Now, yes, you have Katie Brennan and you have Mon Conti, but it's who's your third banana for Richmond now with the Hoskins sisters and Ellie McKenzie not there. So I'm going to tip the Bombers in this one, but this could be an absolute classic if Richmond come to play. Cannot wait. This is, I mean, you picked a good round to review, but this next one could be just as good.
yeah, absolutely. I think you're right in that. I'm very much looking forward to this round. This game will be interesting. I think you're right in saying that. I think Richmond's injury list is probably going to hurt them a little bit. I think there's only so much that Katie Brennan and Monique Conti can carry, but they've still got a solid back line. They've got Caitlin Cox in there, who's actually a very effective player.
Mhm.
Gab Seymour as well. She does really well in there, but be interesting to see how they can stop their midfield and Maddie Prosparkas, are they going to put a tag on her? You know what I mean? You've got Steph Kane, who's always really solid and a good leader in there. Bonnie Toogood as well, and Georgia G. Like that's just an unbelievable list of players in a team that's still so new. But yeah, I think I'm going to pick the Dons with this one.
Yeah, that's a tough one. If Richmond were full strength, that would be incredibly difficult to tip that one because that's the one thing. If the Hoskins sisters were in this, that would be literally 50-50. I would not be surprised to just grab a coin and go, who wins? Flip heads this, tails this, because you'd
Typical.
be just as good. Oh yeah. And unfortunately, this is it's a great round, but unfortunately, the Sunday slate is a little bit of what I call a sandwich one. There's two soft ones to bookend it, and then some really good meat in the middle. So let's take a look at it. Unfortunately, North v. I'm not even Yartapulti. I think again. Please forgive me if I butcher that. So Port Adelaide, North v. Port Adelaide. Unfortunately, I think North just too good. This is the worst possible timing for Port to get North in this one. North is humming. They're playing really good footy. I think this is North, and this could be North by big if North can get going.
Yeah, absolutely. I think I'll state the obvious and pick North Melbourne with that, but I'm not going to dismiss Port Adelaide. I really hope that
Mm-mm.
they can, over the last few weeks, they've got a lot of learnings that they can, prove that they could really prove us wrong in showing that they can be a mature, disciplined team. Schultz is an unreal ruck. She can really match up with North in that aspect. And Abby Dowrick is an absolute weapon. She's only
Mm-hmm.
I think 20, 21 years old, and
Mm-hmm.
she's a strong midfielder. She can power out through packs, and the link up with her and Gemma Houghton is just it can be really deadly. So definitely not going to dismiss them on that. And I hope they can be a bit more accurate as well. They've got a couple of injuries, Port as well, unfortunately. I don't know if,
Mm-hmm.
Janelle Cutherson's actually out or she's just had a bit of a strain with that knee because it did look ugly, but,
Mm-hmm.
she came back on after that. But then they also had Maggie McLaughlin who
Mm-hmm.
injured her ankle in the game as well. So I assume she's going to be out for a bit. But yeah, with North's experience and how well they gel together, I think we're gonna tip North for this one.
Yeah, I'm not dismissing Port. I just feel like there's just so much. Like, it'll be interesting to see Matilda Schultz because she may get Emma King or Kim Rennie in this one. So to be, can she step up to a two-headed monster and at least hold her own? If she can hold her own and at least give that opportunity, I want to see Hannah Ewings lift a little bit. I think she's really, she was great last year, but this year she's in this purgatory. She can't really find her spot. She's not really in the mid because Aaron Phillips has kind of found her form and has went into the midfield. They've moved her forward, but it really hasn't worked there. So I'm interested to see, will Lauren now move Hannah Ewings to try to maybe get her going, because she has been a little bit underwhelming this year, coming off her rising star from last year. So this is a fun one. Icon Park in Melbourne, Carlton v Collingwood, the old rivalry, at least in the men's, but I think the women's is starting to really find that, because there's a little bit of niggle between this. I know this has usually been the first game of the season, so you're kind of getting everything in. Both these teams are fighting for finals. So who do you like in this one?
Yeah, when I saw this, I was a bit confused. I was like, I swear they already played each other in round one, but that was Carlton and Melbourne.
Hmm.
But yeah, so it'd be good to at least this makes it an exciting match for a Sunday. Um, I think with the Blues dominating with their forward 50s, like the inside 50 count this week was a lot like more dominant than Bulldogs.
Hmm.
And they capitalized on that, I think, pretty well. I think it's a bit hard. Like I know they're both quite, they're absolutely fighting for a spot. I think they've both got a bit of fire in their gut to, really make sure that they want to secure a spot in the eight. So I think I'm going to go with as long. I know that Collingwood have got a really strong midfield in Bree Davey and Britt Bonacci and all that. I don't know if Ruby's going to be back yet. I would like to see if she's back this week to see if Collingwood, she can really, be the spark in Collingwood's side this week. But if she's not in, I think I might even tip Carlton. I think it's you. If it was any other week, I'll probably, or if this was 4 weeks ago, I probably wouldn't tip them. But I think I'm going to go with Carlton this week.
I'm I'm this is fun when I literally sat and I went, nope, nope. And like, I think I've tipped both teams a couple of times because I'm literally sitting here. It's like, I really want to know if Ruby Slicer's back, because I think she does change
Yeah,
Collingwood a lot with the runoff halfback, because of that fact that Carlton is one of those teams that they put it in and then they just strangle the crap out of you. They do not let you exit. If you try to exit, if you make the mistake, they intercept Mark and they pump it right back in. Darcy Vesio is fantastic going forward. And then their midfield of Abby McKay and Mimi Hill are absolutely magnificent on their day. Jess Good, and then Bree Moody has able to go forward from her usual absolute AA form and rock. And she's a great marking forward. She's got sticky hands and she's very accurate kick on goal. And Jess Good finding the goal sticks has really helped out too, because it relieves the stress of the goal kicking for the forward. So it'll be fun. Sab
yeah. I did
Fredericks,
hear.
it'll be
I was
interesting
going to
to
say,
see how Sab Frederick does against those two, because if she can hold her own, I think they can balance. I think she can balance it out. Carlton is more dangerous going forward. Collingwood is more dangerous running out of defense. So it'll be, again, this is, I'm gonna tip Collingwood. I think Bree Davy is a match winner. Like I said, I really wish I knew if Ruby Schleicher was playing, because it will affect, it really will affect my thought process on it. Because I think if Ruby is back, they've got a really good shot. If Ruby isn't back, Carlton is much more in a sniff than I think some people are giving him credit, which is really interesting. Looking at the website right now, Carlton is the favorite, at least to the betters. It's very close. It's at least to the betters, but I think this is going to be an absolutely incredible game. I may actually try to stay up and watch this one. It's at a decent 11:05 on a Saturday night for me. So I think I may actually stay up and watch this one, because I think that'll be fantastic. And then unfortunately, the end of the round sees what I think could be an absolute disaster for West Coast, as West Coast take on Nam out at Mineral Resources Park. This is one of those, I hate saying this, could Melbourne put up 100 points on West Coast?
you'd think so. I think they would hit the triple figures on that one. I think West Coast have only scored a goal against them. Looking at their past games, I think last year it was 79-1, so 11 goals, 13 to their 1 point. And the season before that, it was 10 goals, 6 to Eagles, 1 goal, 1. So um, maybe hopefully they can, this is a good opportunity for them to, have a big improvement from their previous visits to each other. But yeah, I think Melbourne are going to have a laugh. They're going to have a nice trip over at the West. WA at the moment is having really good weather. I think they're just going to have a nice over state holiday and just get a nice 4 points and then head on back home and continue off the season, unfortunately. So I do feel for West Coast, but yeah, Nam's going to get up and do have a really good game against them, I reckon.
It's one of those. I jokingly said this a few times. I said, if you're a West Coast Eagles fan, you're like, darn it, Adelaide, why did you have to wake up the giant? Like, that's literally. I kind of said the same thing last year. I said, I if you asked many people, Brisbane woke up Melbourne last year. Could Adelaide just have woken up Melbourne this year? It's very interesting. Like, if I'm a West Coast supporter, I'm thoroughly angry at Adelaide right now because you potentially could have just brought down the wrath of God on your team. Unfortunately, again, West Coast has got some great players. They're going to be in this. They're not going to roll over. But I just think this is one of those where each and every single weapon going forward could have a day out against West Coast. Eden Zanka had 5. I think she could put up 5 again. Kate Horror is absolutely magnificent. She could go bunta in this one. So this is unfortunately this last one of the round could be an absolute bloodbath. Unfortunately, I don't want it to happen. I want West Coast to be competitive, but I could see this one getting away from West Coast early and just being ugly. I mean, bowling shoe ugly quickly in that one. So, well, Steph, that is going to do it. 9 games tipped. Whether we tip correctly or not is going to be the fun part, but you want to know what? I absolutely enjoy it. It's absolutely fantastic. My tipping wasn't bad, surprisingly, for as ugly as it was. I was 5 for 9 last week. So again, tipping the Sydney game, I think surprised some people. I think a lot of people had Port winning that one. So, but this has been a magnificent conversation. Again, this is our first time chatting on camera because I know we caught each other through IG and through the magnificent Ali Farrell, who I know is going to be chuckling as she listens to this episode because I know she listens to all of the podcasts that I do. So Ali, shout out to you. It's great to have you listening to the podcast. But
Good
Steph,
egg.
that she is. But thank you for hopping on it. It's been absolutely fantastic to have a player's point of view on this one because I know I can get fans, I can get coaches, but when I have a chance to get somebody that's playing the game currently, it's a really cool insight to have. So I genuinely appreciate you having on the podcast today.
Thanks, Sonny. I really enjoyed this. I'm glad to come on board, and just a big shout out to you to have a fan out in America that has a keen interest in AFLW and all footy. So I appreciate you, and I really enjoy the chat. So yeah, thanks for having me on.
No, thank you very much. It's always great. Like I said, I have a very very soft spot for the Norwood Footy Club right now. So I must say I barracked for you as much as I possibly could. But as the season went on in the AFLW, I must admit I found a soft spot for almost all of the teams in the sample to the point where I became a neutral for the most part. And I know Phil Aspinall in one of the broadcasts specifically said he goes huge Norwood fan in America. And I messaged him later and I go, Phil, I'm not a Norwood fan. I'm a neutral because I don't want to pick a team because there's something about each of the teams that I enjoy. So I don't know if I can pick a team. Do I have a little bit harder soft? Do I have a little bit softer spots for Norwood because of Ali and some of the people at Norwood? Absolutely. But I'm not going to take a side in the sandful. I'm going to stay neutral because I want to be able to give everybody the love that they deserve. But again, much luck to you. Hopefully you enjoy your off season, and I know training camp will start here very very soon. So good luck with that. I will be keeping an eye on Norwood again very closely this season. Good luck this year, and take care. Okay.
Sweet. Thanks, Sonny. Appreciate it.
All right, and that'll do it for another episode of Donnie's Disposal. We'll be back again with a grand final review of the men's, where I have my boys from California, the Americans watching the footy, joining me to break down all of the action from the grand final in the men's very soon. That'll do it for us for another episode of Donnie's Disposals. We'll see you again very soon.